It was supposed to be just another flight, a red-eye journey crossing peaceful skies, the kind of trip millions of passengers make every year without a second thought. But on the night of March 8, 2014, something unthinkable happened, something that would become one of the most baffling mysteries in aviation history. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a Boeing 777 with 239 people on board, took off from Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing, and never arrived. It didn't crash in front of thousands of horrified witnesses. It didn't emit a mayday call that would summon a fleet of rescue operations. It simply vanished. For nearly a decade, the world has speculated. Was it a hijacking? A mechanical failure? A pilot suicide mission? A cover-up? Or something else entirely? Something so unsettling that authorities have deliberately avoided speaking its name. Over the years, fragments of the plane have washed up thousands of miles from the flight path. Cryptic radar data and scattered satellite signals painted a trail that led nowhere. And now, new findings by a group of independent scientists and forensic analysts threaten to unravel what little we thought we understood. What they discovered hidden deep within recovered debris, radio pings, and black box simulations doesn't just confirm long-held fears. It calls into question the very foundation of modern aviation. The answer, it seems, was always there, just beneath the surface, waiting for someone brave enough to look. In the early hours of March 8th, everything aboard Flight 370 seemed routine. The crew, experienced and composed. The weather, smooth. The aircraft, in perfect working order. But then, somewhere over the South China Sea, just 38 minutes into the flight, the aircraft's transponder went dark. Radar lost it. Communication ceased. For all intents and purposes, MH370 had vanished off the map. But here's where things take a sinister turn. Military radar later picked up the plane again, flying not toward Beijing but sharply off course, heading west. It then banked south, flying for over 6 hours into the vast, empty Indian Ocean. This wasn't a mechanical failure. The turns were too sharp, too precise. Whoever was flying that plane knew exactly what they were doing. But why? Why would someone divert the plane so far from its course in total radio silence? Investigators traced satellite pings known as handshakes that suggested the aircraft continued to fly for hours. Some experts believed the plane's cabin was deliberately depressurized, rendering everyone on board unconscious while the autopilot steered toward oblivion. Others believed someone, perhaps the pilot, was executing a final act of mystery. But even these theories couldn't fully explain what was to come. For weeks, ships and aircraft scoured a remote stretch of the Indian Ocean, an area the size of the United Kingdom, hoping to catch a glimpse of debris or hear the faint ping of the black box. But the sea refused to give up its secrets. That is, until a barnacle-encrusted piece of flaperon washed ashore on Reunion Island, nearly 4,000 miles from the last known location. Then came more: interior panels, pieces of wing, landing gear components, all confirming one thing. MH370 had gone down somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. But here's what the public wasn't told. Scientists studying the barnacles on the flaperon found growth patterns suggesting the debris had been floating in warmer waters far longer than expected. Others analyzing acoustic data recorded deep underwater claimed to have heard something, a low-frequency anomaly detected just hours after the disappearance, far from the projected crash zone. It was as if the plane had taken one last detour, one last maneuver, to bury itself in the ocean's most desolate depths. One chilling discovery emerged from drift analysis. Had the flaperon separated mid-flight? If so, it suggested that the aircraft may have broken apart before hitting the water, an event consistent with a high-altitude structural failure, or something far more explosive. Though the black boxes were never recovered, simulations based on satellite data and cockpit behavior revealed a terrifying picture. Using data logs, signal delays, and engine performance metrics, researchers recreated the flight's final hours. What they uncovered stunned the aviation community. Precise maneuvers indicating someone remained in control nearly until the end. Autopilot didn't take MH370 into the abyss. A human did. One who knew how to avoid radar, how to disable systems one by one without alerting passengers or ground control. And then came the forensics. Recovered laptops belonging to the pilot showed he had practiced complex flight paths over remote oceans on a flight simulator. These paths mirrored the exact deviation MH370 took. Yet no evidence was ever found proving intent, and authorities remained silent. Why would such simulations exist if not for premeditation? Why were key pieces of air traffic data withheld for months after the disappearance? Some scientists suggested that multiple systems had been manipulated in perfect sequence, requiring not just one person, but a coordinated effort. And with those possibilities emerged a terrifying realization. What if this wasn't the work of one rogue pilot, but a breach of cockpit security at the highest level? As years passed, one theory slowly began to gain traction, quietly circulated among high-level investigators but rarely discussed in public. It posited that MH370's disappearance was not an accident, not a suicide, not even a hijacking in the traditional sense, but a controlled operation meant to test how well a modern airliner could disappear. Evidence was circumstantial, but disturbing. The sudden silence, the precise path, the total evasion of radar, the lack of any confirmed debris field, and most damning, key nations with access to military satellite data refused to release full telemetry logs. What were they hiding? Could MH370 have become a test case in psychological warfare, electronic jamming, or stealth technology? Or even worse, could someone have deliberately taken those lives to study how the world would respond? Some claim that the aircraft was remotely intercepted. Others that it was destroyed mid-air by a weapon we're not meant to know exists. And although many scientists remain skeptical, the final piece of recovered debris tells a different story. An internal panel from the avionics bay showed signs of fire damage, not from a crash but from within. What ignited it? Who accessed that bay mid-flight? And how did we let a modern aircraft simply vanish without answers? As hope began to wane and the ocean seemed to withhold its secrets, a faint signal broke the silence. On April 6, 2014, an Australian naval vessel equipped with sonar sensors detected what might have been a ping from the black box of flight MH370. The location was deep in the Indian Ocean, far from Perth, Western Australia. Experts quickly correlated this signal with satellite data that pointed to the same general vicinity. Could this finally be the clue that would unlock the truth? But almost as soon as the excitement began, doubts crept in. The signals seemed inconsistent, and the vastness of the ocean made it nearly impossible to narrow down the exact location. An underwater robot was deployed to scan the area, but it found nothing. No fuselage, no debris, no black box. As days passed and batteries drained, suspicions grew. Was it a false lead, a sonar error? Or was the black box buried so deep that its final voice was beyond reach? The silence was deafening. And as June 2015 arrived with no wreckage found, the search team was forced to face a grim possibility. The ocean had swallowed MH370 whole, taking with it the only evidence that could speak for the 239 souls aboard. But just when the world began to turn the page, the Indian Ocean whispered again, this time from the shores of a distant island. On July 29, 2015, the tides brought with them a grim token of confirmation. A flaperon, part of the airplane's right wing, washed ashore on Reunion Island, nearly 3,700 kilometers away from the search zone. It was battered, worn, and unmistakably from a Boeing 777. For the first time in over a year, there was something tangible, something that once flew through the night sky with the hopes of hundreds aboard. And now, it had surfaced alone. But this flaperon was just the beginning. Over the next 18 months, wave after wave delivered more haunting artifacts to the beaches of Tanzania, South Africa, Mozambique, Madagascar, and Mauritius. Seats, panels, pieces of the cabin interior, each one a fragmented chapter of a story that refused to end. Out of 26 items, 3 were confirmed to be from MH370, while 17 were strongly believed to be. Some fragments were scorched or bent in ways that suggested violent force. Others seemed eerily preserved. One thing became clear. The aircraft didn't glide to a gentle landing. Experts analyzing the flaperon damage proposed a terrifying scenario. The plane may have entered the water in a steep, uncontrolled dive. No one could say for certain whether it broke apart mid-air or upon impact, but the findings were enough to reignite a new wave of theories, and with them came renewed fear. Just as the investigation seemed to lean toward mechanical failure or oceanic misfortune, investigators unearthed something that cast an even darker shadow: human intent. When Malaysian police examined the home of Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, they discovered a flight simulator that held a chilling secret, a saved route eerily similar to the one MH370 had taken. The path led deep into the Southern Ocean, far from any land or rescue. Even more disturbing, the simulation had been deleted, hidden from casual discovery. Why simulate a flight into oblivion? Investigators couldn't ignore the timing. Zahari was undergoing a difficult personal separation from his wife and had recently faced the political imprisonment of a close relative. Was it stress? Was it despair? Or was it a carefully executed plan to disappear beyond the reach of the world? Friends and family vehemently denied these allegations, painting Zahari as a loving father and passionate aviator. But others weren't so sure. Could he have locked the co-pilot out of the cockpit, disabled communications, and depressurized the cabin to incapacitate everyone on board? The theory was horrifying, but the facts refused to dismiss it entirely. And then another name surfaced: Fariq Abdul Hamid, the co-pilot. He too had made a mysterious move. While scouring the satellite data and examining radar inconsistencies, a surprising detail emerged, one that made the mystery even more surreal. As the plane flew low along the Malaysian coastline, Fariq Abdul Hamid's cell phone briefly connected to a communication tower in Penang. A call was made. It lasted only seconds before it was cut off, likely due to the plane moving out of range. But the question hung in the air: who was he trying to reach? And why then? Authorities remained tight-lipped about the recipient, leading to a wildfire of speculation. Was it a final goodbye? A desperate cry for help? Or perhaps a signal to someone waiting on the ground? The secrecy surrounding the call only deepened the uncertainty. Some believed it was further evidence of a personal crisis spiraling out of control, while others saw it as a clue that Fariq may have tried to avert the disaster, not cause it. Rumors swirled about romantic entanglements, mental health struggles, and even a potential hijack attempt from inside the cockpit. But as more details of Fariq's life emerged, the narrative didn't quite align. He was deeply in love, engaged to a fellow pilot, and looking forward to a promising future. He was not a man on the edge. So then, was the call a last attempt to resist what was happening, or a breadcrumb deliberately left for investigators? As we stand at the edge of this haunting mystery, one truth becomes painfully clear. Flight MH370 did not simply vanish. It was erased. Piece by piece, signal by signal, the clues have surfaced not with clarity, but with contradiction, confusion, and unanswered questions that echo louder with every year that passes. From the silent depths of the Indian Ocean to the chilling discovery of human patterns in the cockpit, we've been left not with a conclusion, but with a maze where every path circles back to fear. Because what scientists just discovered in this case doesn't merely point to mechanical failure or even a catastrophic event, it confirms something far more disturbing: that even in our hyper-connected world, a modern aircraft can disappear without a trace, that data can be manipulated, that evidence can be buried, literally and figuratively, and that those in power may choose silence over truth when the facts grow too uncomfortable. It confirms what we all feared, that MH370 wasn't just lost to the ocean, it was lost to us. And perhaps the most terrifying part of all, it could happen again. If this story left you speechless, if you felt the weight of what's been uncovered, then share this video with someone who still believes the whole truth has been told. Because until we demand answers that go beyond headlines and official statements, the silence will continue to win. Subscribe for more investigations that shake the surface of what we're told. Like if you believe the families of MH370 deserve the full truth. Comment below. What do you believe really happened to Flight 370?